We're introduced to Moses, the greatest prophet in the Hebrew Scriptures. And he is one who encounters the Lord in a very unique way with his burning bush. But the message that God has for him is not about God and what he's doing, or even the expectations in terms of laws that he would give to Moses. No, that comes later. But the primary concern of God is the salvation of the people. God cares about their suffering, their enslavement, and he wants to save them. That is so important for Moses to hear. Moses would otherwise want to just stay in the safety of his surroundings. He escaped Egypt already after killing one of the slaves, and he found a new home where he was able to prosper and have safety. But Jesus calls him out of that safety, calls him out of that ease of life to care about those who are suffering, to care about those who are enslaved. It, I think, is a wonderful message for us in this Lenten season. We see so much suffering in the world. We see many broken hearts. We see the pullback of funding for those who are suffering from diseases around the world, and also a lack of concern for warring nations. It's very easy for us in the safety of our land to just overlook all of this suffering, all of these trials, and think, well, they can be left to their own. We're going to just take care of ourselves. But as the Lord calls Moses to enter into the fray, to care about those who are in need, so he does for us as part of our Lenten practice. And the important thing to do is to keep in mind is what we hear in the gospel, that as we care about those who are in need, our job is to allow them to have the ways and the means by which they can flourish, realizing that just because of their suffering, we should not overlook them, thinking that it's their own fault, much like the owner of the vineyard looked at that tree, that fig tree that wasn't bearing fruit, thinking it just should be cut down. No, what we're all called to do is to provide the means by which people can flourish in life, realizing that we have been given so much, and it is our responsibility as a nation so blessed to really care about the rest of the world. And so that cultivation of others really begins with a fundamental belief that there is goodness in others. We are to see the sufferings of the world the way God does, looking upon others with the eyes of God to see the goodness that's there. I often marvel at parents who have a child that's somewhat unruly and difficult, or maybe suffering with special needs, how they give so much time because they see a fundamental goodness in their child. We must have that kind of eyes also as we look upon the world, the eyes of God, to see the good that's there, just like that gardener told the landowner there was still good in that fig tree to be cultivated. But it also takes patience, realizing that things just don't happen overnight. The worries of the world, the concerns of the world, the problems of the world are not going to be solved with just a snap of a finger, but by our involvement and our resourcing of others, our help to them. God patiently will bring the new life just as a garden is cultivated. It is important for us to realize that in a world that is so connected, we cannot overlook the sufferings of others. But God is present there in those sufferings, and so if we want to call ourselves holy, if we want to say that we are with God, we must be with God in relieving the suffering that's there. And it does take patience. We would like to have things resolved quickly, but things take time. It's always good to remember that it took just one day for Israel to get out of Egypt, but it took God 40 years to get the Egypt out of Israel, to have the slavery that they were inflicted upon and the scars of their slavery to be removed to go into the promised land. And so too it is with our own lives. how patient God has been with us. Should we not show that same patience for others who are suffering, realizing that we should stand by them in their need? That is the way God looks at the world. And the invitation for us today is, as we see Moses looking at that burning bush and marveling at the presence of God, to also marvel at the presence of a God who's willing to be with those who are suffering and downcast, those who have special needs in the world, and to join in his work of bringing about their salvation.